Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Regan Elite here with another episode of Speaking My Mind. How you guys doing? I hope you're all having a good weekend. So, what are we talking about today? I want to talk about a country that really, since it was only a few months after I started up my channel, that found itself plunged into war. And I've been following it quite closely ever since then. And that is Sudan. And while I don't know a lot about the country on a personal level, never set foot in the country, never spoken to people from the country, and I hold my hands up in saying that. But what's happening in Sudan up to this point, from the time of this recording, because things may change, have been nothing short of a humanitarian disaster. Have been terrible. It's been absolutely terrible. The amount of life that has been lost in Sudan is just unprecedented, and it's something that people do not talk about. And the reason they don't talk about it is because it's an African country. Because it's an African country, we don't talk about it, or that we don't want to talk about it, or the mainstream media highlights it, but it's not like, it's like on the side or back pages or whatever, like not like the biggest and most important news, sort of thing, because it's not near us, it's not next door, it's not Europe, so it's not really something that's affecting us personally. It's not like we need anything from Sudan, so let's not talk about them, because that's really what it is. It's really what it is. If Sudan had diamonds, gold, if it had all the loads and loads of resources, probably would get talked a lot more. You'd probably have more intervention from some of the bigger powers of nations about what's going on there. Now, that's not to say Sudan doesn't have its own resources, it does, but it's a huge country. It's a massive country on the continent, and what really infuriates me is there's no real desire from anyone to do anything about it. There's no desire from anyone to deal with the crisis. Now, I do believe the UN are trying. I do believe there are one or two countries that are generally trying to sort something, try to negotiate some kind of peace or something, like a sit-down talk, something. But for those who don't know the context, basically, it's basically between two armies that have been bred by a long history. I can't give it all off the top of my head, but essentially you have the Rapid Support Forces and you have the Sudanese army, which is supposed to be like the official government army. Then you have the Rapid Support Forces, which essentially, and there have been accusations of genocide, there have been accusations of murder, rape, villages being pillaged. It's very hard for any journalist to get into the country because their safety is not guaranteed. You have huge amounts of famine, starvation, malnutrition being caused to civilians as a direct result of this conflict. And what's happening is so many of these people have been forced to flee their country, flee to neighbouring countries. Some of them fled to Egypt, and then obviously some of them have stayed in Egypt, and then some of them tried to flee to Europe. So a huge amount of global migration, I do think a big part of the global migration is contributed by Sudan. And if you're somebody who's concerned about immigration and migration, you should be concerned by this. You should be standing up and saying, well, if you don't want more migrants coming to the UK, especially skilled migrants, because you don't know if they may not have many skills to bring. If you're somebody who has that issue, you should be someone kicking and shouting, why are we not doing something about this? Why is the world not doing anything to stop this conflict? And I think that's a question you should be asking, because if you stop these wars, you stop these conflicts, you can reduce global migration. I've said this many times, but those on the right wing, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about de-escalating these conflicts and whatnot. Some of the stories that I've covered over the few years since this war. It's been heartbreaking. You know, up to 25 million people have been displaced. Millions of women and children have lost their lives, have some starved, some all sorts of things that I really don't want to get into detail, but it's so heartbreaking. And take nothing away by things that have happened in Myanmar or other conflicts that are taking place in Africa, because believe me, there are other conflicts. I'm aware there are other conflicts taking place in the world that don't get talked about. I know, but this one is one I've been watching quite closely, and we don't talk enough about it. We need to talk more about it. It needs to be called out. World governing bodies need to take action. And do you know what's even more frustrating? I'd say frustrating. Do you know what's more infuriating? Is that the powerfulest nations in the world can stop this. They could stop these wars. They know they could stop these wars, but they make a political choice to not do anything about them. It is their choice to not help these countries, or not do enough to help them. You know, you hear Donald Trump, for example, like him talking about like Russians or Ukrainians and innocent civilians dying. Has he said anything about Sudan? Has he even mentioned the country Sudan? Does he even know that Sudan is a country? Does he even know what the word is or where it is on the map? No, probably not. But because of Ukraine and Russia, he sees it as a different story. We need to do more. Everyone needs to do more. It's not always about money. Sometimes it's just about getting people around the table to sort things out. Every day that passes, someone in that country has suffered or died because no one wants to do anything about it. And the media have done a fucking shit job of covering some of the most important news in the world, because of all what we've been doing is talking non-stop about Donald fucking Trump when there's other things going on in the world as well. So, what do you guys think? What do you guys make of Sudan? Maybe some of you aren't familiar with the country and the situation. If you haven't, do check out some of my videos on African news. Do check out some of my live streams on Snowflake Corner, where I've covered it a few times as well. Maybe I'll do a Sudan special live stream one day, maybe. Talk about the country. Maybe that might help get his voice and picture out there. But do you agree with me that countries like Sudan, other African countries or countries in the world that are in these wars and conflict don't get talked about enough because they're not in, because mega powers like America, Britain, Russia and that are just not interested in them because they have no value to them? Let me know your thoughts and more down in the comments below if you agree with me. If you found my thoughts in any way informative, helpful or interesting, hit that like button, share across social media. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.